I was like, you're gonna look back and realize I was the
Welcome back to another episode of Artist to Artist presented by Artist Republik. I am Christian, and again, it is just me this week. Please remember to give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. But we're just going to get right into it this week. So, this week's guest is someone who goes by the name of Tiger Lily. This rising indie pop star makes music that has been described as the musical equivalent of a blurry, low exposure Polaroid of one of the best nights of your life by Northwest music scene. Tiger Lily grew up playing electric guitar and fronting an all-girl grunge band named Seattle's Best Underage Band by Seattle Weekly. After high school, she moved to New York City and launched her solo project. Since then, she's lived around the world from Medellin to London, Barcelona, Los Angeles, and Mexico City. She has performed beside major acts, including Grammy-nominated duo Social House, and collaborated with top producers such as Bloody White and Jake Crocker, Dempsey and Ryan Caraveo. Her music has received praise globally from tastemakers like Spin Magazine, KEXP, EARMILK, IGGY Magazine, and DJ Magazine. As EARMILK put it, from the rain-soaked streets of Seattle to the concrete jungle of New York, Tiger Lily is clearly making memories and giving them sonic life. So let's go ahead and get right into this one.
Yeah, so when I started out, I started playing music when I was really young. So I think I was probably we're talking like pre-kindergarten, like preschool. Like my mom would put us in like talent contests at the county fair with my sister and my cousin. So I was performing since I was really little. And by the time I got to elementary school, I knew that I wanted to be an artist. And I remember I was trying to make a band back in elementary school, and no one wanted to be in my band. And I mean, no one really played instruments that well either, so it was really hard to recruit band members. And I think by the time I got to middle school, I was so fed up because I was like, man, I'm getting old. Like, I still don't have this band together. I'm so old. Like, we're never going to make it. I was always comparing myself to Michael Jackson because that my dad was always telling me like, oh, he started when he was like 7 or whatever. And so I was like, oh man, I'm so old. So I finally just told my sister and my cousin, I was like, you guys got to like learn some instruments because like I can't find any bandmates. Like, I've been like recruiting throughout the school district. Like, you guys just got to do it. And they were like, ah. And I was like, no, you got to do it. Like, it's not even an option. Like, you guys have to learn bass and drums. So they got put in lessons. They learned bass and drums, and we launched the band. I think I was in 8th grade, so like last year middle school. And then we did the band all of high school, and it went really well. So it was really dope. We got voted like Seattle's best underage band, really playing concerts all the time. I remember I was always really hard on myself though. So like by the time like 4 years went by, like in high school, and like we weren't like super famous, I was like, this is a failure. I was like, this sucks. I mean, we put out like 3 records. I mean, we were like playing every weekend. Like, it wasn't like a failure, but like to me, I was like, this is lame. I was like, I'm going to college, like screw music. And so I went to business school in New York City. And then but the problem was that I went to business school and I still had like, in the back of my mind, my dream had always been to be a musician. And so like by the time it got to the point where I was supposed to graduate, I mean, I actually took a job on Wall Street when I first graduated, because I was still like, okay, like I've gone through business school, like I've been doing this life, but there's still that kind of like urge in me where I was like, I still know what I actually want to be doing is music. So I went out actually after I took the job, and I went to LA to go visit my friend who was out there. And when I was there, I started to really see like all of these musicians out in LA, like doing it. And I was talking to other people, and they were like, what are you doing? Because I would tell them this story. I'd be like, oh, I used to be in this band, and now I'm going to go work on Wall Street. And they were like, no, they were like, you should just like forget Wall Street, just like move to LA, quit your job. And so that's what I did. So after like 2 months on the job, I quit the job, and it was a really good job. And so everyone was like, what in the world are you doing? Like, this is a terrible decision. This is like the worst decision ever. You're going to be homeless. Everyone kept telling me that. And so far it's been going well. I mean, I've been doing the solo music, and last week the single got on all these Spotify playlists, and it was like, one of them was like indie pop that has like all these artists that I love, like all my favorite artists. And that for me is like the moment where I was like, I am so glad, like I quit the job and like I'm doing this. But yeah, I'm currently doing the solo project, and I actually played some concerts with the band the other day. So that's not totally dead either.
That's awesome. Sounds like a really wild story, like going from working on Wall Street and then just completely dropping that and deciding to go for music full time. That's I think for a lot of people, that's something that people strive to do. But I want to dig into that a little bit more, you know, like what were you feeling when you decided to do that? Like, were you stoked? Were you a little nervous?
Yeah, I was definitely nervous because I mean, it'd been kind of something in the back of my mind for years. Because I mean, for years, even when I decided to like go to college and when I was picking colleges, like it was always in the back of my mind. Like I actually got accepted into Stanford and I was like, but in my head, I got accepted into school in New York. And in my head, I was like, Stanford's a way better school. Everyone's like, go to Stanford. But I knew that Stanford, there's no music scene out there. And I was like, if I go there, it's going to completely kill my music dream. And the other school's in New York City. And I was like, maybe I can make a band there. So I was like, screw Stanford, we're going there. So there are always like turning points in my life where everyone's like, go like the corporate route, like go to Stanford, go get the job, whatever. And I was always like, I'd always pick the option that had kind of like this back door back into the music industry, just in case I like got the courage to go for it.
Yeah.
And I think when I like quit that job that I got out of college, it was really hard because I knew if I quit that job, it wasn't even like I was quitting it to go to a different job. I was like literally quitting it to just be like unemployed and work on music. And it was just, I mean, I think part of what kind of gave me the courage was it also coincided with quarantine. So the world was like in chaos and everything was kind of chaotic and no one cared what I was doing. And I think if the world had been normal, I would have had all this kind of like pressure on me where everyone would be like, oh, like that's what she's like, just like in LA, sleeping on a couch, like making music. But I was like, no one cares what I'm doing. Like, who cares? Like, the
Right.
world is like chaos. So I was like, no one's going to notice. And no one did notice until I started like dropping all the music. And they were like, what did you, all my business school people were like, what are you doing? But honestly, they've so far been very supportive and like proud of me. So it's awesome.
That's great. And that's one big thing that I think a lot of younger artists don't quite get is that support. You know, you have those external pressures, people telling you to go that safe route, you know, keep that job on Wall Street because that's safe. It's going to make you the money that you need to survive. But I think the most successful artists are the ones that just decided to jump off the cliff and see what happened.
Yeah. It's good because it gives you kind of like a, I think when you have, someone told me, they were like, if you have a plan B, you're going to end up with plan B. So you
Yep.
just got to get rid of plan B. So you only have one plan and then you'll make it work.
That was actually the same exact advice that I got when I was trying to figure out what to do with my life. And it resonated with me like hard. And ever since, I've never had anything but plan A. But I get it from that perspective because I left my nice, decent paying gig to move out to LA and live in a van and try and figure that shit out. And I did that for like a year and then I figured shit out. And now I'm making good money doing what I love. So it comes back to that whole idea of like just making the jump and going for it. Right.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool. Um, Earlier when you were talking about kind of your story, I mean, this is all about your story, right? But you mentioned how recently one of your songs just got put on a playlist with a bunch of your favorite artists. What was that like? Like, and what was the process? Especially for the people listening, you know, like, did you do anything to get it there, or was it just kind of it just happened?
Yeah. I mean, I always pitch to Spotify for artists ahead of time. And then yeah, trying to get it on as many playlists as possible as far as like smaller playlists so that it'll get picked up by the bigger playlists. And then also like I've invested in getting press. I have like an agency I work with and I think Spotify actually monitors your press, so I always tell people like press actually matters.
Yeah, actually, I never knew that. I didn't realize that Spotify monitors your press as well. That's cool. It's a very interesting concept. I wonder how they do
Yeah, I was
that
surprised
though.
when I learned that too.
Do they have
I
like
still
a
don't know.
core group of people that just like look at other people's stuff or?
I think they can monitor the web to see how much I think they can just kind of scan the web to see how much your name is being mentioned
Mm,
as well as like the release. Because I
and
know I got a ton of press for this one and I think that also helped.
so like SEO stuff probably. That makes sense. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
it seems like you know what you're doing on that front and you work with an agency, you said?
Yeah, I work with 10th House agencies, so they do like music PR stuff.
Oh, cool. And I guess how did you get involved with that? Like, were you just searching online for PR agencies and stumbled across them, or like what was
Yeah. I have friends over there, so they've
cool?
recommended it.
Yeah, it's all about knowing people, right?
Yeah, that seems to be the common denominator for everything in the music industry.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm just kind of jumping around a lot here, but I noticed in your bio you said that you've lived in a lot of different places like Colombia, Barcelona, Mexico City, right?
Yeah,
Um,
I'm about to go.
yeah. What brought you out there? Just the need to travel or music? Both?
Yeah, it was a lot of the stuff I did was a lot of it, well, I guess it's all been spread out over the years. So I actually went down to Colombia for a job. I went to Barcelona to study. I went to London to study. Um, Going to Mexico City for music, and also just because it seems like an awesome place to be.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it was all different things bringing me to these different cities, and I was always felt kind of guilty about it because I was like, I don't know if this is going to be like helpful for like my music career, like I don't know, or am I just like having a good time? But I found that it all seems to kind of come together in weird ways because like living in all those countries, I got really good at speaking Spanish. So now I've been able to do like collaborations with Latin artists, and like when I
Mm.
went down to Mexico City, it was cool because I could go into sessions with them, and like we could co-write stuff together. And I've always loved Latin music, so that's been super cool. But yeah, so I'm excited because I actually in Mexico City, that's something I want to kind of get into, is collaborating with a lot of Latin artists because I've always loved Latin music, and I
Yeah.
figured that's like the city to be doing it in.
Yeah. And we talked to a guest a few episodes ago, and he's a Latin American artist. And that one big thing for him was being bilingual has helped him in that section of his career so much. And are you like fluent in Spanish, or do you know enough to get you by?
Yeah, I'm fluent in Spanish now.
Sweet, sweet. Well, let's talk about collaborations a little bit. What's your view on them? It seems like you enjoy doing them, but would love to hear it.
Yeah, I love collaborating with other artists. Um, It's been funny, like, even when I got on, like, Spotify Fresh Finds, like, the first thing I did was, like, go through Spotify Fresh Finds and be like, "Who on this list do I wanna collaborate with?" So I actually have 2 collabs coming out with artists that I found, like, last week on the list. And I think part of it's been, like, at least for me, I just feel like everyone brings something different to the table. So I love collaborating with people. Like, sometimes I'll see artists on Spotify and they've, like, never done collaborations with other artists, and I'm just like, "Why?" Like,
Right.
but I mean, like, there's some people are, like, they love how they do it and they love their music and they don't want anyone messing with it. For me, I love seeing, like, because I know what I bring to the table, and being able to see, like, to mix that with something else, I just feel like it makes it like twice as cool because we're both bringing stuff to the table. So yeah, I love it.
Yeah, and collaboration is something that I know a lot of people have been trying to get into, especially smaller artists. I think the kind of concept behind it is like you're leveraging your collaborator's audience as well to grow yours and vice versa. Is that kind of how you see it, or do you see it as more on the personal side, like just getting to work with these other people?
Yeah, no, I think it's definitely good for like expanding your audience. Like, I always wonder because I've noticed too, like a lot of artists, they'll only collaborate with people in their like we're in their city or like around them. But like I've intentionally tried to find artists like in different countries because I know maybe it's partially from like living all over the world. I'm like the US market is super cool, but like I want people to be listening to me everywhere, like Mexico, like all these different places, which is
Yeah.
also why I really wanted to go down and like go make music down in Mexico because I was like my friends have like they might be popping off in the US, but I want to be popping off in like different countries because there's such big audiences in other countries that you can tap into.
Yeah, it's that cultural immersion, I think, and it makes the music that much more genuine, especially if you're trying to market that music to a foreign audience. The American music industry is considered like the biggest in the world, right? But what a lot of people fail to realize is like, yeah, sure, it might be the biggest in the world, but when you add up all the other industries in the world, sorry, I have to plug in my other monitor. When you add up all the other industries in the world, it greatly outnumbers the United States by far. And I think a lot of artists don't realize the benefit of marketing that music to a global audience.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Like when I look, I always check out like my analytics on Spotify to see like where people are listening to me. And like LA right now is my biggest city, but for a long time it was Rome and it was Mexico City. So it's always bounced around. When I started out, it was in Asia. So that to me was like immediately I was like, okay, like people are listening to me in the US, but like they're listening to me in all these other places. Like Seattle's never been my number one city, even though that's where I'm from.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, like people are listening to me in Rome. So that's why I was like, okay, I'm gonna do a song about Italy. Cause I mean, you might have noticed all my songs too, like a lot of them are about cities. So there's like Lisbon, New York. So it's also kind of fits in with my brand. I was like, I want to collaborate with like people from these cities and do songs about where they're from too.
That's such a unique thing. Like I don't know of any artist that actually does something like that, where it's sure like some artists will cater to a different audience by switching up their language or talking about certain topics, but I've never actually seen an artist specifically talk about the place that they're trying to market to.
Yeah, it's a unique idea. I mean, in my head too, I was thinking like, because like like I always have these ideas and like I don't have like a huge team behind me, so it's just like me and I'm always like, is this a crazy idea or is this like a good idea or is this like a messed up idea? Because I was like because I was like no one else is really doing that, because I've been like hitting up producers in like France to do them a song about Paris. Like I've been hitting up people in different cities, because I mean, to me, I would think it was really cool if I found like a song about like Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because sometimes I'll notice like on SoundCloud people, I dropped a song about Juneau, Alaska. I've actually never even been to Juneau, Alaska, but they like found it and they were like, this is dope. They're like, I'm from Juneau, Alaska, and this song's dope. This is super cool. So I was like, okay, this is like some people like it.
So do you like research the location that you're writing about and then like put in certain like aspects of like Juneau, Alaska, for example, in the lyrics?
Not really. I'll always like put in the title somewhere, which is also pretty hard when it's like a weird word like Juneau,
Juneau.
Alaska. Yeah, Juneau. Like I'm like, how do I fit this in the lyrics without it sounding like an ad or something like cheesy?
Yeah.
But they're always inspired by. And the thing is, like, so actually Lisbon isn't even about Lisbon. Lisbon's about Porto, but Porto sounds terrible. So I was like, as a lyric and as a title, I don't like how it sounds. So I changed it to Lisbon. And with Juneau, the song was, because they're always inspired by real people and real things. So like with Lisbon, which was my first song, I wrote that about a trip I took to Porto with someone, but I changed it to Lisbon because it sounded better. And then with Juneau, Alaska, I wrote it about someone who goes to Alaska every summer. And I was like, okay, I don't know exactly where in Alaska he's going, but I'm going to like find the city that I think like sounds the prettiest and like use that. So that's kind of how it's always been. It's always been like, there's always some connection that I have to wherever I'm writing about. And then I'll just pick whichever one sounds the best. Like the latest one for Italy, I was looking through all the places I could write it about. And I'm doing it about the Amalfi Coast, because to me that sounded like the prettiest, like most poetic thing. I think I've always kind of taken kind of a poetic stance when I write the lyrics. The inspiration for that actually came from Bon Iver, because he does the same thing with like Calgary. Like he has all these song titles that are cities. And to me, I really liked it because it sounded very poetic to me to have like songs about places.
Yeah, I guess like Anchorage and Fairbanks don't roll off the tongue like Juneau does.
Exactly. It just like doesn't sound like like I was like, that's the problem with Rome. I was like, it doesn't really like sound like, it doesn't sound nearly as like poetic as like the Amalfi Coast.
Yeah, like when you think of the Amalfi Coast, you think of just like these beautiful shorelines and cliffs and just like this beautiful location, right? You don't.
Yeah.
When I think of Rome, I think of like Catholicism.
Yeah. Vatican.
Vatican, yeah, the Pope. So
Yeah.
you don't really have a big team behind you. You mentioned that a little bit ago. What is your team like? You, obviously.
Yeah, it's me, and then I have 10th House Agency who I work with, but it's always been mostly me. Yeah.
Oh, so you're just bootstrapping the shit out of this, and you're doing fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. That's really cool. And a big part of our audience are independent artists. So all of this stuff that we're talking about, a lot of people might have been thinking like, oh, wow, she's got like a team of people behind her. She's got a manager who's helping her get this and get that. But when you're doing it yourself, it's just that much more impressive, I think.
Thank you. Yeah, I always thought it was funny because I had well, that's part of what I learned being in the rock band, I'd say. Because with the rock band, part of why I quit music originally was I was like, I was waiting for like outside validation that somebody would see. Because to me, and I mean, I've always had very much like a business marketing kind of like mind. So to me, at least when I looked at the band, I was like, this is brilliant because we have these three girls who are all young, cute, look the same, really talented, all related. I was like, this is like gold. I was like, who's going to pick us up? Like a label, a manager, someone's going to see us playing. We're like 15 years old with 3 albums and be like, they rock. Because in my head, I was like, they rock. I was like, we rock. We're great. And no one ever was interested. And I was like, and we were playing shows like every weekend. And I was like, and we got all this press, all this stuff, all these gigs. And no one was interested in managing us, nothing. And so I was like, we must not be that great. So then I like left it, walked away from it. And so when I came back to music, I was like, I'm not going to wait for like outside validation. Like, if no one wants to manage me, I'm just going to keep doing it. And it's so funny because I always hear about like, and I don't even really know why, but like, I've never had people that are like no one's ever been like, oh, like what you're doing super cool. I want to sign you. And it's so funny because I've like racked up all these like accolades and it's the same thing. And because of that, I had to learn how to do it myself. And I'm honestly super grateful for it because now if somebody came along and was like, I want to manage you, I'd be like, well, I already got myself like 50 press articles and like all these Spotify editorial playlists and like with all these collaborations with no help. And so I'd be like, I don't like, what else can you do for me? And like, I mean, there might come a point, but I would say like for independent artists, like, I think that's very empowering to be able to know that you can do it yourself.
I think so. And I also think that in this day and age with the current state of the music industry, even if you do go to get or a manager or a label or somebody approaches you and somebody's trying to help you along with your career, I would always advise to an artist, like, only get it if they're going to be able to improve upon what you've already built and do more than what you can do by yourself. Um, and that's another thing too, is having that prior knowledge. Once you do get a manager or a team behind you, if they're fucking up, you can call it how you see it because you know that what they're doing isn't right.
Yeah. I had like a manager for like a brief period in my career when I first started, and it was just a friend. But it was funny because I really started like doing stuff after I got rid of her. Because I think the other issue is if you have a bad manager, you assume they're gonna do it, so you don't do it yourself.
Yeah.
And when I was with her, I didn't put out any music. It was like this like stagnant period where I didn't write anything, nothing got done, like nothing happened. And so I think that that's the other issue. Like if you have a bad manager, they can just slow you down because you'll assume that they're on it. And if they're not, then nothing's going to happen.
Totally. And a lot of people say, like, if you have a bad manager, your career is over if you stick with them for too long. It takes one person who's supposed to do a job to not do the job and then ruin it all. But I think that's fantastic that you have that mindset. I don't think a lot of independent artists do. You know, we get a lot of messages on social media and in our inboxes that are like, oh, can you manage me? Or how can I get a manager? And I think the question should really be like, what do I need to do to be big enough to have someone who needs to manage me? And they should be reaching out. They should be reaching out to me. I shouldn't be reaching out to them.
Yeah. And I think that's something I've noticed too, because I always try to be sensitive because I know like at least when I talk to my friends who are also artists, they're like, I've never seen anyone get excited about music marketing as you. Cause I actually like I think it's super cool. And they're always like, they're just sitting there like, oh my gosh, this is so stressful. Like, I don't even want to talk about it. Like, so I think like, if you don't have that mindset, then I can totally see, like, I think there's so many agencies and stuff out there you can outsource it to. So I don't think like, if you're actually bad at it and you don't want to do it, you should totally outsource it.
Yeah.
But if you're passionate about it, like, why not? And I mean, I don't know how many artists are passionate about it. I haven't met very many, but like if you can figure it out yourself, that's always great.
Yeah, I mean, marketing sucks. Like most people don't like to do it, but it's essential, especially in this day and age, you know, with all of these distribution companies and all of these music tech platforms online now that you can pretty much do anything that you want with your career. It's important for an artist as an individual to really lean into the marketing aspect of their careers, because you have to stand out from the crowd, right? Like you can't just, it's not the 1990s. You're not Eminem. You can't just go to a rap battle, win, and then get signed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a whole different world now, and the market is so saturated with artists that in order to be successful, you have to be able to stand out, and all of that stuff, not all of it, I would say a lot of it comes down to the marketing that's behind that brand.
Yeah, that's what I always tell my friends. Like whether like it doesn't even matter like if you're gonna do it yourself or you're gonna hire someone to do it, but you just do it. You have to do it. Like
Right.
because if you don't do it at all, then that's the worst thing you can do because you're putting all this heart and soul into this music, and like if you're gonna put that much effort into your music, you should at least put an effort so people actually listen to your music. Because I find so many talented artists, but they are just not putting any thought into getting people to actually listen to the music, and
Right.
you got to do that because there's just too much music these days. It's like everyone's dropping songs, everyone on TikTok dropping songs, everyone's dropping songs.
Everyone's dropping songs, but you have to be unique about the way that you do it. You have to be like the Lil Nas's of the world.
Yeah,
it's an interesting world that we live in now, because 20 years ago none of this was even possible. Yeah, I kind of like what you said about like you kind of just have to do it. It's kind of, I was just watching this TV show last night, and that's why I'm aware of this concept now, is like I guess Sylvia Plath wrote a book about, or a section of the book talks about like a tree, and like each branch is a different decision, but if you just stand there and stare at the tree and don't make a decision, the tree dies.
yeah,
And I think that echoes even to independent artists in the industry. You know, you have to be willing to just make a decision for your career to get to that next point. And if that's marketing, then that's marketing.
yeah. I think it's also like something that people don't recognize is like how important it is to like get in the community and meet other people, because like everything
Yeah.
in the music industry, I always tell that to like whenever I talk to people who want to work in it, because like all of college I was interning in the music industry, and they're like, oh, how do I like work in this and this, and that's also why I'm like so wary of record labels, because I was interning at all these record labels. So now when A&Rs hit me up, I'm like, I already know, like I already know what this is. Like this doesn't mean I'm getting signed. Like don't even bother. Like
Right.
but I always tell them it's just like it's really just who you know. So like something I'm trying to do is like create a Clubhouse Room, especially for like women and people of color, so we can all connect with each other, because I know that's something that's like super hard in the music industry. Like
Yeah.
I can't even tell you, like the other day I went to a session and I arrived and the guy was like, weren't you afraid I was gonna like do something to you? I was like, absolutely not, until you said this. Like and I was just like, he's like, doesn't that
So
happen to you
weird.
all the time? Yeah, no, people, that always happens. It's just like weird stuff like that. And so, and I know talking to other like women in the music industry, they're like, oh yeah, that's like happens to me all the time. So I think finding resources for that. And I think there's something where it's kind of like this, I think, and I know labels sometimes do this too. They'll like try and like pit female musicians against each other, because there's like only one of you can be like our like star woman in pop. So I've tried to like consciously go out of my way to try and not think like that. Like when I'm reaching out to collaborators and stuff, like I don't just reach out to guys, like I'll reach out to female musicians too. And even if we can't do like a song together, because maybe it wouldn't make sense from their perspective, I'll be like, we can like co-write together. Like there's things we can do to support each other.
Yeah.
So I think that's super important too, like trying to find community as an independent artist, because there's so many other independent artists who are down to help you.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think the community is what's going to help set you apart from a lot of people as well. There's a lot of different factors, obviously, but I think being in a community of like-minded people who are all willing to just help each other, everyone's going to rise to the top. It's not just going to be that one solo person who took the record deal, made a bunch of money, and has no friends once they get to where they want to be.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I found it super surprising. Like I'm like that weird person who like DMs my like artists that I like on Instagram and then just like hopes for the best. And I mean, like half the time they'll like ignore you, but like when they respond, it's iconic. Cause like I there was this one song I was listening to all summer on Spotify, and it was pretty big. It was like on all these playlists, and it was like one of my favorite songs I used to listen to all the time. And I don't even know what I was thinking, but I like DM'd the guy. I found him on Instagram, because if you go to Spotify, you can find every artist's Instagram. It's like 99% linked. And I like messaged him and I was like, I just really like your music. Like, I don't know if you'd ever want to collab. And he was like, well, I'm pretty busy. I mean, he's pretty big, but he was like, and then a couple days later he hit me up and he was like, I don't really understand TikTok. Like, could you like FaceTime me and like show me how to use TikTok? And I was like, of course. I was like, this is killer. I was like, here's my phone number. So now we're going to FaceTime. And I was like, that's like so funny to me. Like, you can really connect with people that you might think that you have no shot with as like an independent artist, but you'd be surprised. Like, you can make friends from it. Like, you'd be surprised. You should just go for it. Just reach out and see what happens.
The worst thing they can say is no or just ignore you, right? Like,
yeah,
it's not like they're going to sit here and like spend the energy to yell at you and tell you that you're wrong for sending them a nice message. Like, no one fucking does that.
No one does. Yeah. Yeah, no one's gonna do that. The worst thing that will happen to you is you'll get left on red. Well, maybe not even if you're left on red, then they read it. Or like it's not that bad. I mean, this happens all the time in like dating and other things. So I was like, what's the difference? It's my favorite artist who's like ghosting me.
Right. And then look, when you get famous, they're gonna reach out to you and then you can just leave them on red because fuck that shit.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, this is great. Cause like if I just like all these people, if you hit them up now, yeah, just wait a couple years. If you just keep doing your thing, eventually, yeah, they'll be hitting you up.
I've actually heard stories about that where someone, hit up their favorite artist, they like gave them the cold shoulder or just ignored them. And then a few years later, that guy sent them an email or messaged them and is like, hey, I'm writing this song. We should collab on it. Sometimes they took it because like they weren't too burned from getting left on red. I wouldn't be, but everyone's different, right?
Yeah.
So we're getting towards the end here. We still have a little bit of time left, but I want to make sure that we're covering all of our bases here. So talk to me about this recent release, Best You Ever Had with a Heart.
Yeah. Yeah, so I wrote that song. I wrote that when I was in LA. I'm trying to I feel like Best You Ever Had was funny because usually my songs are about very specific like people or very specific things. And that was like the first song I had done that was just kind of like a general ode to everyone I'd ever dated.
Yeah.
But it's like this one goes out to everyone. But it was almost kind of like that what we were just talking about is kind of that thought because it was actually funny. I had a lot of people like after things started happening with my music career who like came back around, whether they were like friends or whatever, just people I knew from the past, and they were like or guys I had dated refollow me and like all my stuff once they saw like all the cool stuff I was doing now. And so I wrote that song because it was like you're gonna look back and realize I was the best you ever had. So that was like the lyric from it. And that was also the first like cheerful song I had written because all my songs are usually like these like sad songs, but I was like, I want something that's like cheerful because it's going to be summer and all of that. And I worked with the producer out here in Seattle on it. Jake Crocker, he actually does all of Dempsey Hope's stuff. And I love Dempsey Hope. So that was kind of the idea behind that. But yeah, that's kind of what the song was about.
That's cool. And you mentioned that it was placed on so many playlists. What? Fresh Finds, Pop, Indie. What other editorial playlist was this thing on?
Yeah, it was
amazing.
placed on Fresh Finds Pop, Fresh Finds Indie Pop, Text Me Back, like a bunch of them. So I was like very excited about that.
Yeah, that's super stoked. Like, I can't like if I was an artist, I'm not an artist. I like cameras, but if I was an artist, like that would make me so happy.
Yeah, no, that was really the first moment where because I was just I mean, when you're an independent artist, part of it is like, you're always, I think in the back of your head, you're like, am I crazy? Like, am I just like, am I crazy for like, is my music even good? Like all these things. Yeah. And so when I got placed on those, for me, it was like the first moment where I was like, this is working. I was like, this is actually working. Cause I love like Troye Sivan. Like that's like, he's like my like number one, like all of those artists, all those indie pop artists, Claro, all these people. And I looked on the thing and it was like my song and all of them on the same playlist and so like cool. Everyone I listened to. And I was like, this is great. I was like, this is working.
Yeah.
Just gonna keep going.
That's insane. I was going to say something and I lost it when I said that was insane. That's fun. Can we talk about your TikTok campaign that you're doing for it? What's that all about?
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm still figuring out exactly what like the logistics are gonna be, but it's kind of a perfect song for TikTok because the opening is just like a phone kind of message saying like you're gonna look back and realize I was the best you ever had, and then you have this like big drop, and then like the song starts.
Yeah.
So I'm actually talking to a bunch of people about the TikTok thing today to figure out kind of like the logistics for it. But I've done them in the past, and in the past I did like a prize, like I gave out like I think it was $250, and like I got 250 submissions, so it ended up being like $1 per submission. So I
Nice.
mean, this time I want to partner with some brands to do kind of like a bigger giveaway. um but yeah, that's kind of the idea I have in mind. Like I'm hoping if I can get away with it, I won't just like pay off a bunch of big TikTokers. Like I kind of like, I've, at least with the last campaign I did, this kind of like crowdsourcing thing where it's like this is like the prize, so I'm hoping that will work again for this.
Sweet. Do you know about when you're going to try and roll that out, just so our listeners can maybe join?
Yeah, I mean, if people want to make TikToks to it right now, it's up. But I'm thinking, I think I want to do that pretty soon. So I'm thinking like beginning of August is when it will happen, or maybe this is coming out a little later. Maybe we'll do it do it a little bit later. It'll probably take a second to coordinate everything, so maybe it will end up being more like end of August, beginning of September kind of thing. I'm thinking usually I last time I did it for a month, and that seems to be like a good length. So I think I'll like have it go on for about a month.
Well, don't base your entire decision off of this one podcast.
Yeah, I don't know how people are tuning in and being like, I wanna create a TikTok video for it. But it always takes so long to coordinate everything. Like in my head, I'm always like, okay, I'm gonna just like do this next week. But I mean, there's so much logistics that go into creating a TikTok campaign.
Yeah. Again, back to the marketing. Love it, right? So much.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it.
Well, if you're listening to this and you want to be a part of this TikTok campaign, where can we find you on TikTok?
You can find me. It's at the moment it's XO Tigress. Not sure how I picked that, but it's like XO TIGRESS. But yeah, my Instagram is tigerlily_music. That's where I normally am. I think that's the best representation of me as an artist.
Well, check her out on both. Definitely be a part of this TikTok campaign because that sounds really fun. I've never been a part of a TikTok campaign, but I might just join this one because why not?
Yeah, it'll be a good I think it's gonna be like a fun like glow up
Little glow
glow up
up.
TikTok.
Okay, I might have to
Yeah.
get someone to do my makeup for me then. We'll figure it out. Well, Tiger Lily, I have one more question for you, and then we're going to wrap this up. And that question is, what is one piece of advice that you would give to somebody that might be listening to this right now?
I think I'd have to go back with kind of that thing we are talking about. Like I think get rid of your plan B, because I mean, it really depends on you and your situation, of course. So, but if you can get away with it, I'd say try and really focus in on your plan A, because I really do believe, and I think more so than just that, I kind of feel like I've gotten more like spiritual in the last year, and I'm starting to feel like it almost sends a message to the universe that this is really what you want, because I've noticed that whatever I focus on tends to happen to me. So when I had that backup plan of finance, I would get finance connections everywhere. I'd be like karaoke bar, like, and I'd meet like some like VP at like some big finance company. That has stopped happening to me. So I feel like you need to like send the universe like a message for what you want. And I've noticed even it works with what you're talking about. Like when I talk to people now, instead of like I'll talk to them as if things are happening, like things that I really want to happen. I'll just start talking like they are happening. Like even with like Mexico, I made the decision in my head. I was like, I'm gonna go to Mexico, and like I didn't really think it through. I just kind of declared it, and then I just started telling everyone I was going, and now I'm gonna go. So I feel like it's almost like send the universe whatever you want your intention to be. Like make that very clear. I dreamed about getting on those Fresh Finds playlists. It's like all I ever thought about. I was like, I really want to get on Fresh Finds. I really want to get on Fresh Finds. And then I woke up and I was on Fresh Finds. So I feel like it's really focus in on what you want and like send that message to the universe, tell everyone what you're doing, and really believe it's going to happen. I think things will happen for you too. Not you specifically, but for for the listeners.
I mean, I'll take it too.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Tiger Lily, thank you so much for taking some time to sit down and chat with me. I usually say us, but it's just me today. So thank you. For those listening, Thank you for tuning in. Please be sure to go and check out Tiger Lily on Spotify or wherever you get your music and listen to Best You Ever Had with a Heart. Also, don't forget to give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcast. We'd really appreciate it. And with that, we'll see you next week.
Somebody low